Chap's got James. James, you contacted a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago. You wrote a book, which I haven't read. I'll be honest with you. You wrote a book, and I started looking at your website and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, actually, you might have a bit of a story, really. And I do think you touch on some topics like the whole midlife crisis, low testosterone stuff, maybe in a slightly different way to other people. And I think when it comes down to
Mm.
midlife crisis, especially in men, it's normally joked about.
Yeah.
I think.
And this is one of the reasons I wanted to.
No, no, go on,
Yeah,
go
it
on.
has got this. Yeah, it's got that bad reputation, hasn't it? It's still got that tired stereotype of like, oh yeah, I've got the open top sports car and the younger girl with me, and it's a bit of a shame that there's been so much positive work around menopause, but still midlife for men is a little bit stigmatized or ridiculed.
Yeah,
I mean, my personal journey into this was I moved overseas. I moved to Spain. I was running a business retreats business over there with my wife. And she left me very suddenly. Like, I mean, literally,
right.
I'd gone back home 'cause one of my parents had a health problem, and I flew back. She picked me up from the airport, and then she just burst into tears and just went, "I want a divorce." And for me, it came completely out of the view. I mean, long story short, it meant that in my mid 40s, I was suddenly left, running a business on my own. My wife had just walked out the door completely unexpectedly to me, and I really struggled. My confidence was on the floor, and I had to put a brave face on and carry on as many men do. We mask up.
Yeah,
And my journey out of that was really quite a long and painful one. We talk about the long time after soul, but what I realized was over time, I was like, oh, come on, James, you've got the background in this. This is what you do. This is what you do for a living. Why aren't you applying these tools to yourself? So I started to, and I put my hand up to ask for help, and I went on retreats and I sought out mentors and coaches that could help me, and I pulled myself out. And met my current wife. We met, instantly clicked. We got together. We launched the business we do together now, which is helping midlifers. But the book you're talking about, the Midlife Male Handbook, came about through a combination of two things really. And the first was again personal experience. Again, I'm 52 now, but when I was about 49, 50, I went through a real low period. I really struggled for motivation, for finding any enjoyment in life. And I started to look into why this might be. And as men, we know there's lots of reasons that there's kind of like psychological pressures, whether you're living to your values, feeling fulfilled. But this thing around low testosterone as well. So that was one reason. The other reason was working with big corporates and talking about men's mental health
yeah,
and talking about low testosterone impact. I was asked, where could I just go and read about all of this in one place? And it's like, well, it doesn't exist yet. So hence why I've put this down. And but essentially it's, as a man, you know, how you might be feeling, how like why you might have a lower energy, why you might be more anxious, why you feel a bit lost in life, why your physicality isn't maybe what it was, why that's happening to you, like what are the reasons and what you can do about it.
yeah. Do you think we've done talks on the menopause, or is it andropause? Is that
Yeah.
another name for it?
Andropause, yeah.
That's it. So we've actually
Yes,
done.
that's their yeah.
Yeah, so we've actually done talks. We did two on the same. We did two on the same day. Released them. One about the menopause to educate men, and then the other one
Yeah.
talking about the menopause or low testosterone. And it was really interesting because some of the comments got really quite aggressive because we dared to compare low testosterone with the
Mm,
menopause. Like, how dare you?
yeah.
Am I making that? And it does feel like the low testosterone stuff and the midlife crisis is just brushed off because it's not as important. Both are important. Don't I'm not undermining the menopause.
Yeah.
It sounds horrific, and I've spoken to many people
Mm.
who are going through the
Or
premenopause.
perimenopause. Yeah.
That's it, and it sounds absolutely horrible. And I generally do feel for them, but um, we can't ignore what happens to men as well.
No, absolutely. I think it's really unfortunate. There's a certain subsection that is really like a them or us narrative, and we
I
don't
hate
need
that.
that.
Yeah,
We're in it together. And I think what's interesting is perimenopause and menopause for women it is more pronounced because it's driven by primary sex hormones, and that's happening in a relatively short space of time for them. Probably feels like a long time, right? Because of the
yeah,
symptoms, but it's happening in a narrow window, so the symptoms are far more pronounced. with men with testosterone, that will peak in our 20s and then declines at a steady rate, 1 to 3%. So it's not a lot. But compounding that, it might be by the time we're in our 50s, we start feeling the effects. So it's a little bit more insidious. It might be like, I just am a bit more lethargic. Oh, my libido, I'm noticing it's not where it was. My energy's gone, I'm not as focused at work. So the two are comparable, I guess, in that they're both driven by primary sex hormones, estrogen for women, testosterone for men, and they're both likely to happen at a similar point in life. So if you've got a couple in a relationship, of course, that can drive a massive wedge between. And something we're talking about more is something we're calling the couple pause, when they're
That, that,
experiencing it at the
that
same time.
no, that is why we did that. That is why that's why we did the videos at the same time because I
Yeah.
started looking at stats like the age of the menopause and the menopause was about the same time when a lot of divorces happen.
Yes.
So that's why I
Yeah.
was like, educated. I was like, well, hold on a minute. So if the bloke is arguably feeling sorry for himself
Hmm.
and feeling down and dumps, whatever else, and then the woman's just like, stay the fuck away from me because of
Yeah.
everything that and it is traumatic what they go through, like
Yeah.
the sweats and whatever else. So because they're not communicating with each other, they then start to hate each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why we did that. That's why we did that like that little short video series actually on that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. But anyway, carry on. I interrupted you.
No, it's great. It's great you're doing that. And I think it is, listen, it's about understanding, right? Because imagine if you're feeling like this way yourself, you're like, oh, I don't even know what's going on with my own body, like, and my own mindset. If you can't understand that yourself, how are you going to relate to someone else who's having a similar thing going on? So I think it's really important that we just start open conversations about it, and
No,
we say to our
absolutely.
partners, this is how I feel at the moment. And we just have compassion with each other. But this whole, trying to dismiss and even to an extent, the NHS is guilty of this. It doesn't want to recognise it. If I'm being cynical, it's because, it would cost money to start giving men TRT on the NHS.
Yeah,
But I think dismissing it is we can't, testosterone, does it decline with age? Yes. So at some point, is a man likely to experience the effects of reduced testosterone? Yeah, it might not be till they're in their 60s, 70s, but it could be far earlier. And it can
yeah.
have a massive negative impact on a man's life. And if we take a step back and we look at, the horrific stats around mental health, particularly like, we know the highest suicide cohort is midlife men.
Hmm.
So what's driving that? There is a link between low testosterone, and suicide. Autopsies often show testosterone is low in male suicide victims. But there's
Yeah,
also the psychological pressures. I think, it's a time of life where we kind of look and go, am I where I want to be? If I am there, is it even what I want anymore? It's time when we reevaluate everything, and that can bring huge psychological pressures. But I'd say the way we want to reframe it is not see this as a crisis because it can feel like it, right?
yeah,
I think it's to be a bit curious. I always say, remember when you were an adolescent and all those hormones were changing and it was exciting but confusing, right?
yeah,
Similar things happening now at midlife. The hormones are changing, our neurotransmitter levels are changing. It's confusing, but there's opportunity on the other side of it. So what I encourage men to do is start opening up, having conversations about how you're feeling, what the symptoms might be. Definitely, go to your GP and ask for a blood test for testosterone levels. Start looking at the simple lifestyle adjustments you can make to help optimize your hormone health. And I can talk about those in a second if you want.
yeah,
But really start reframing as well, because one thing that we overlook, I think, is the effect testosterone has on our psychology. Like when our testosterone is elevated, we can feel very positive about life. And I think as we age, regardless of testosterone, we become more risk averse anyway, right? We start to think
yeah,
we've got more to lose. But actually, there's still opportunity out there. There's still loads of things we can go and do if we want to with our life. Let's spend time, look at our values, look at what makes us feel fulfilled, and start recalibrating our life to go after that. And then we'll be happier as well.
yeah. No, absolutely. Because that's one of the things, and I've said that, I think I've said this before. It's just my concern. I speak to a lot of people who've been left behind by suicide. It's always that same story, didn't see it coming literally every single time, every single time. And what saddens me is some of them, some of the people, some of the men who have died, they're bank managers. They've had good careers and all of this kind of stuff, and never saw it coming. He seemed so happy, and I don't know how to say this without upsetting someone. I've realised I'm always going to upset somebody. I think it's if you like look at they're like late 40s, 50s, early 60s. Maybe there is the whole testosterone thing going on. The kids have moved out because they've started their life and their careers. I think men are losing their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
once we lose purpose and then chuck in the lower testosterone and everything else and the crazy hormones going on, we've got to start talking about it a bit more. And I do agree we do need to get men talking about it, but I think
Mm.
we need to stop taking the piss about it as well.
Yeah.
Did you get me? Especially like the midlife crisis. Are you going to go and get a car and all this kind of stuff? I've always ridden high-powered super sports motorbikes, so I'm terrified what my midlife crisis is. What am I going to do? But hopefully that made sense. Right? My wife just nearly put me off there as well. So
No, that totally made sense. I do think again, it's funny, isn't it? It's still you wouldn't take the mick out of a woman going through menopause,
I
but it's
wouldn't I
accept
wouldn't
accept
dare.
you would
Yeah.
dare. But it's still kind of socially acceptable to take the mick out of a man at midlife, feeling a bit lost. And I think what you said there about purpose is so true. I think you know, culturally, right, we're kind of taught by the time when we're young, we look ahead to when we're in our like late 50s, 60s, is like, okay, well, everything in my life will be sorted by then. I'll be on top of my game, I'll have my career, everything will be perfect. But we get there or near there, and it's not like that at all. Like you said, we're dealing with kids leaving home, maybe aging or ill parents. We're trying to keep our relationships on track, balance, fine, all the rest of it. Huge pressures. And there'll be a perception for us that we may have come to like the high point of our career as well, and then that
Yeah.
that thing of purpose you're talking about. But listen, men, we can find purpose outside of work as well. So, if your career is not lighting you up, but you still need to work, I get that. But what else could give you purpose? What other hobbies could you do? What groups could you join? I think as men, we need goals. We need things to shoot for. So it's about aligning those values with the purpose to actually feel a bit fulfilled in life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will say is if you can't, I'm a massive fan of peer to peer.
Mm,
Within reason, I'm a massive fan of peer to peer, and I stand very very strong as if you can't find a group what's suitable for you, start one.
yeah, yeah,
Massive fan. There's your purpose. I think so.
yeah.
So with you, Sel, the one thing I admire about you straight away is you said obviously, but I don't want to talk about your wife, your ex-wife too much, but it's just you kind of fell on your ass because you wasn't practicing what you preach.
Mm,
And I've said this again publicly. It's just with Man Up, I've been burnt out, like proper burnt out, where literally my head can't do anything for like a good couple of
mm,
months. Because I don't want to blame Man Up, but it certainly hasn't happened. It hasn't helped. Sorry, it really hasn't helped. So how did you kind of pick yourself up? Because here's me preaching: go out to the
mm.
wild, go for the walk, do whatever you want to do. Start a knitting group, which some bloke did for his mental health, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
It's just how did you pick yourself up?
Yes, I mean it's a great question. I think the first thing to say is, if anyone else is in a similar position for whatever reason, is first thing have some compassion. No one is immune from this stuff. Like I said, like you said, I had the knowledge, I had the toolkits, but the emotional impact was so hard, I couldn't really see a way forward for myself. And the honest answer is, it just took a bit of time. And
Yeah,
then kind of recognition that I can't stay in this place of being like low mood, feeling of no worth in the world, no confidence. And I guess I kind of had to show up for the work I was doing and be in front of people and be presenting, but that was very much a mask. And it's a little bit of time. It's trite, but time is a healer. Like, don't try and rush it. But I'd say even taking the smallest step to feel better, like going, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this one thing that will make me feel like just go for a 30-minute walk
yeah,
outside, and just those small steps gradually building up. And then, like you said, peer to peer or peer to professional, sometimes, as men, we're kind of conditioned to say, like, we think it's weak to ask for help. Actually, it's really strong. Do you want to, look at all your top performers in the world. They have people that help them. If you're
yeah,
feeling stuck, look for one of your mates, even just someone that looks like they could help you, give you advice, get you out there.
yeah. No,
So don't be afraid to reach out for help was the other thing, and that's what I did. I reached out for help. I went on retreats. I sought therapists, and I moved myself forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like with me, the whole retreat thing for me personally, the idea just completely and utterly freaks me out. I'll be honest with you. But to be honest, but yeah, again, if that works for you, that works for you. But with me, I guess I do because I'm into the wild camping and taking my way in
Oh,
solitude
lovely.
and stuff like that. So maybe it's a different way of doing the same
Mm,
thing, if that kind of makes sense.
yeah. Yeah.
I really do, but yeah, I think yeah, we need to be pushing more of enjoy life a little bit and know when to switch off.
Yeah, and I think as men, we need to have more time with other guys, right? So, all the research says men are less good than women at maintaining their social networks. Even when they do maintain them, they don't really open up and be vulnerable within them. All these things. So, this is why if we go back a few decades, it wasn't an uncommon story for the man to kind of retire at 60, 65, and then feel utterly lost and just be isolated, sat at home because everything that the man did was around his career and workplace with nothing outside. And I think, the workplace has evolved and culture's evolved, but as men, I think we need to be careful that we don't end up in that space, that
Yeah,
we do seek out, groups that are supportive, those peer-to-peer interactions, and that we stay curious about the world.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. Actually, I think we need to be pushing that during the working life, during the
Mm.
marriage, and just it's okay. Men and women, I don't think it's a
Yeah.
gender thing. Of actually, you don't always need to be sitting next to your wife. You don't always need to be sitting next to your husband. You don't always need to be work 9 till 5. If you enjoy something, just go and do it. Have a break and find yourself within reason. I think that's why I like the whole wild camping stuff,
Mm.
especially in winter, like minus whatever in a tent. Is there a bit of masculinity there? Of course there is.
Yeah.
Of course there is. I'm not going to lie on it, but I think it's more of knowing what I'm capable of,
Yeah.
especially when you're a few hundred meters in the air and it's like mine. Everywhere else is down below. It's like they're borderline wearing t-shirts, and I'm like -17 on a mountain. Do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
about proving myself to myself.
Yeah. I totally get
I can
that.
keep myself alive for like 3 days with just a couple of ready-made meals, not ready-made meals, but the rehydrated
Yeah.
meals and warming the gas up because it went light and stuff like that. So
That's awesome. And listen, I think exactly what you say is exactly right. We all need that me time. We live in a really noisy world now, right, where we're always on. There's always something pushing information at us, social media, TV, the internet. How many of us actively plan and take that time for ourselves where we can just, reflect? And I think that's so, so important as well.
yeah, no, it's true, and I stand by that. Actually, nothing other than what's in your direct, like the life you're living right now. Like this is our life we're living. I don't want to go all woo woo, but at right now, the only person who's really important, I know my wife was distracting me, is the conversation I'm having is having now. There's nothing actually what would be that important. What can stop this? So just live this moment.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
if anything serious happened or whatever else, then that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Actually, it's very rare that anything that serious comes up.
No.
And do you know what? I did a post on LinkedIn. Actually, I hate that website sometimes. Where I said one of the best things I've ever done for my mental health is turn off read reports on WhatsApp.
Mm.
Okay, I can't see
Yeah.
when you've read it and vice versa, but I don't care. And the amount of people what got quite upset, they're like, Dan, I don't know whether you've read it. Well, why do you need to know I've read it? I'm not on I'm on a contract on my
Yeah.
mobile phone to have the flexibility of using a mobile phone, but that doesn't mean that you own me.
No.
And then also when people send me a message and I've read it, or sometimes they don't reply for ages. I'm really really sorry I haven't replied to you. It's like, well, I've got read reports off for a reason.
Yeah. It's scary how we've already been trained by
Yeah,
social media and digital platforms in a relatively short space of time. We hear all the time about anxiety, exactly that. People get anxiety over has my message been read? Oh, it has been read. Why haven't they replied to me yet? And it's just wow. So I think sometimes we just need to take a step back from that and go,
yeah,
you know what? It doesn't matter. We need to. It's sad because I think we've lost the ability a little bit. We need to train ourselves just to be more present in everyday life. And okay,
yeah. I
you
don't think
can't
we
do it
are.
all the
Yeah,
time. No. But just giving yourself those moments, going, okay,
yeah.
well, maybe when I wake up in the morning, I won't look at my phone or turn on the telly. I'll just find some quiet space for 15 minutes and reflect on what I'm grateful for from yesterday. and grateful for in my life generally. And maybe that's a great way to start my day before I let all these external influences start impacting me.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, totally, and I agree. So, just before we draw to a close, I'm looking at that
Mm,
time, and I'm quite hot on that thing now.
yeah,
But so I know we've bounced around a little bit. That's probably
yeah.
my fault, so I apologise. But it's been a good chat. So, if any bloke has, what do you want? If any bloke's watching this, or even the missus who's getting a bit concerned about the fact, what would you tell them to do? I know it's such a hard one, but what would you tell them to do based on what we've spoken about?
I'd say, listen, if you're the female and you're concerned about your partner, if they're seeming like a little bit maybe withdrawn with quiet, just pick your moment and never interrupt them. So this is something my wife and I have to train each other to do. My wife will get something, I want to talk to you now about it. But now we train, she's like, I'd like to talk to you. Is now a good time? So start with that and just go, I've noticed these things. I'd like to talk to you about it. If you're the man, I think take that in the spirit in which it's given. Don't because the instinctive thing sometimes people get defensive about it.
Yeah,
So open that conversation because maybe you need it. If it hasn't been initiated by your partner, then if you're feeling that way as a man, just think, okay, what do I want my tomorrow to look like? And
yeah,
so, and I don't mean like literal tomorrow, but just the future. So what can I start to do to move how I'm feeling and feel better and more positive? And again, it can be really simple things like, having this time to reflect, like you're talking about, and that might be while camping for one person, it might be just going for a 15-minute run around the block for someone else. Find your thing to give time for yourself to reflect. Think about your values, think about purpose. What would I like to do? What would be some goals I'd like to go for? And open up to friends and your partner about how you're feeling.
yeah, absolutely. And I'll give your wife credit, and let's admit her is she's happy to call you out within reason, and that's something what I
Yeah.
so you said it in a much nicer way than I did. Is one of the things what I do get frustrated with is actually if you see somebody struggling, they and up to a point just brushing you off.
Mm,
Sometimes I'm going to keep saying sometimes. 'Cause I'm not saying everyone should just go or you. I think sometimes it's just okay to say, I know something's wrong, you're not doing this
yeah.
or you're not doing that. And I think we've moved into a bit of a world of like, are you okay? Or, oh
Mm,
yeah, speak another day. Or maybe, sorry, I'm confusing myself. I think we brush off the conversation because
mm,
we're worried and we're not scared to just say, I know something's wrong. My chair trustee, I've said it loads of times. He will say to me, if he sees me struggling, he'll be like, Dan, you're being a dick.
mm,
I'm not suggesting everybody goes around. That's just the
yeah.
terminology I used, and he knows how to snap me out of stuff. If he sees him struggling, it's like, Dan, you're being a dick. Fail, be like, maybe you need to piss off and go wild camping
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I think we need to bring that kind of stuff. I'm not saying everybody should start trolling and having a go at each other and
No.
being a dickhead about it, but I think sometimes it's okay to just say, I know something's wrong because of this.
Mm.
So kudos to your wife, mate.
Oh, thank you, mate. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'd just like to add to that. I say if you as a man, like sometimes we don't even know why we're not feeling okay, right? And
yeah,
if someone asks you, "Oh, I've noticed it," again, we can go into that defensive mode because we want to appear, the ego steps in. But it's okay. It's okay to go, you know what? Actually, I don't. You're right. I don't feel okay at the moment. But I'm not quite sure what it is. I'd like to be curious about it and maybe see what the way forward is. So it's okay to be not okay and start talking about it for sure.
great call. And on that bombshell, there's that cut off there. That was
Right. Thanks, Daniel.
no, no, it's all good.